So, in our last session, we have started discussing about VPC. So, any questions for me on our previous session, guys? So, did you get any chance to explore this?
Avinash, I have a question,
Yes,
right?
please.
When I do my IP on Google, right, I get some IPv6 address, I think, right? That is not what you were getting, right? Some big number,
Mhm.
right? So when I do IP config on my Windows machine, right? So before that, it is coming as temporary IPv6 address. So why it is coming as temporary?
That depends on your ISP. So, your internet service provider might giving in that manner. So, just do one thing. What is my IP.com? Go to this website. What is my IP.com? So, you will get complete information. So, my IP information, what exactly it is, location and all. So, you can depend on this. So this, like, yesterday we might have something different and today we might get something different one. So basically this is going to be managed by our internet service provider, ISP.
Okay.
They will take
So
care.
it is like changes every day. I mean, I didn't observe it.
That is like, how exactly their DHCP is configured. So it depends on that first thing. But in our organization, we are going to purchase a dedicated IP addresses. In organization, we are going to have dedicated IP address that is going to be fixed for years and years. So for example, IP. I have that IP address in my mind. For example, this is one of the IP address that's going to be fixed for that organization. So when I logged in here, so it will take me to that particular login page. This is the IP address. So in organization, it's going to be fixed, and for that dedicated IP address, we need to pay more. But in our home, you're not going to pay more. So you are going to take a shared line. So they're going to give a random IP address. Did I answer your question?
Yes, Avinash. So every private network, right? If it usually starts from 190 to 168. I mean, is it a class C? Because in your case as well, it was starting from this only 190 to 168. And when I'm running on my machine, that angry IP scanner, I'm getting the same range. I mean, when I do my IP on both the sites, right, I get an IPv6 address. But when I run this IP scanner, right, so it is like 192.168.29.0.
First of all, this works within your local network.
Mm-hmm.
Till your Wi-Fi, what you are getting, that is in your ISP hand. But you have a router in your home, right?
Yes, yes.
Have you ever logged into that router and have you verified what is the IP address configured within the device? In your
No.
home network, I can definitely say it got configured with Class C.
Okay.
So as that router is configured to use one of these private IP address, you will get that private IP address.
Yeah, with dot one, I am getting redirected to the router homepage, right? Geo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're using Geo, they will definitely give you IPv6 only.
Yes, I'm getting V6, right? When I do my IP.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine, Avinash.
Yep. So when coming to today's session, we are going to create our VPC. So as I mentioned, our VPC creation involved with some steps. Right. So the step one, create a VPC and what is the CIDR block you want to give for that VPC. So I'm going to write down step by step. Step one, create a VPC. So while creating VPC, it is going to ask us what is the CIDR block you want to give, what is the name of the VPC you want to give. So you can give any name. I'm going to call it as a custom VPC. When coming to CIDR block, CIDR, So you need to pick any of the one from these three. You can choose any of the one. So I'm going to take this as an example, 192.168.0.0/16. Again, as you are aware, /16 means we are going to get 65,536 IP addresses minus 531 usable IP addresses we are going to get. Right. If you want to go with the /17, absolutely fine. /16, absolutely fine. Right. /18, absolutely fine. Anything below, if you're trying to give /15, so it won't support. So I'm going with the highest supported one. Now, whenever we are creating a VPC, some components creates automatically. Along with VPC, default security group, default network ACL. I'll talk about what exactly it is. Default security group, default network ACL, and root table, main root table. So these three components creates automatically. Okay. Whenever you are initiating, create this VPC. So this, you know what exactly it is, default VPC. Every VPC is going to contain a default security group. Default NACL, we will talk in our coming sessions. Root table, we will discuss today itself. Okay, now let's go and perform the step one. I'm navigating to VPC. Okay, again, don't go with the VPC wizard. Navigate to your VPCs or VPCs here. So we already have one VPC, that is default VPC. See, default VPC set as a yes. Every region is going to contain only one default VPC. So can we have two default VPCs? No. In a single region, no. So due to any of the issues, you have deleted this VPC, or you have, for example, you have deleted some subnet or you misconfigured something. So in that case, what you can do, you can delete this entire VPC. There is an option, create default VPC. So then you can use this option to create a default VPC. Earlier, this feature is not available. If you want to create a default VPC, you need to raise a ticket. If you accidentally delete, or if you wantonly delete and later on you need it, you decided you require a default VPC. So you just need to raise a ticket earlier, but now with this option, you can create it. Create default VPC. Okay. So along with the default VPC, we have three subnets, AP South 1A, 1B, 1C. And I told you one root table is going to create. This is a root table and it's a main root table, main set as a yes. Okay. And one internet gateway that provide internet connection to our default VPC. Here it is. And one network ACL. Under security, you can find network ACL. One default network ACL got created. And all the subnets are part of this. Security group. One default security group is there. One default security group is there for this particular VPC. So these are the components we already have. Now I'm going to create a new VPC. Click on create VPC. What is the name tag you want to give? My custom VPC. I'm going to call it as my custom VPC. Now what is the CIDR block you want to use? You can give the CIDR block 192.168.0.0/16. 192.168.0.0/16. Right, I'm not going to use any IPv6. So the tenancy, never ever go with a dedicated tenancy. It's going to cost us very heavily. So this entire network, this entire VPC is going to run on a dedicated hardware, network components and all. So go with the default tenancy, we are good with that. So then what is the tags you want to give for what project you are creating and all? For example, we have a project. For this project, I want to create this cost center ID or project X. You can give that names. Then click on create VPC. Now VPC creation is completed. Right. So now, do we have any subnets? Earlier we have only 3 subnets, still we have only. Root table. Earlier we have only one main root table, but now we have 2. For what VPC? You can find that here. See, this is for custom VPC. And one more network ACL you are going to get. This is a question I faced in my interview. Whenever you create a VPC, what are the components you are going to get? This question in my early interview, I got this, not in recent times. So for custom VPC, one network ACL got created. It is a default one. And one security group also is going to create. Earlier, only one default security group. Now you are going to get another default. See, this is another default security group for this particular VPC. Right? So this is for one VPC. This is for another VPC. Now, let's go to step 2 and let's create our subnets. Create subnets. Now, a question, how many public subnets you required, private subnets you required. So initially I'm going with one private subnet and one public subnet. Okay, what is the name you want to give? So I'm going to call this as a public subnet. Then what is the CIDR block you are going to use? The CIDR block. So initially I told you I want to create 2 subnets, private subnet and public subnet. One public subnet and one private subnet. Again, for this, what CIDR block you want to? In future, are you going to create any? Do you want to keep anything in spare? Yes. Total, I want to create 4 subnets. In future, I might require 2 more or 4 more. So then you decided to go with this. So then go with this visual subnet calculator. This is the one we are using. Now divide. So if you are going to use 2, then you can use these 2. But I required for future use. So I'm going to segregate this into 4 subnets. How many IP addresses I'm going to get for every subnet? 16,382. These 2 I'm going to use at moment. These 2 I'm going to use for future. If I want to segregate these 2 in future, yes, of course I can do that. So at moment I'm going to choose these 2. Okay. If you want to, you can pick any one, guys. So for example, see, till this you can pick any. Okay, so that is absolutely fine. So now I'm going with this 192.168.0.0/18. That is the first subnet one. Navigate to subnets. So for this I'm giving this. So then for the second one I'm going to give this 192.168.64.0/18. Okay. Any confusion here? So I have, so at moment I'm going to consume 32,000 IP addresses for the existing subnets. Still I have 32,000 IP address in spare for this entire VPC. For example, you want to use only 254 IP addresses here. So then what is the subnet you need to use? You need to use /24. If you are using /24, then you are going to get 256 IP addresses. Technically 251 usable IP addresses. So that you can calculate. See, 254. So for that 192.168.0.0, 1.0, this one also I need 254, this one also 254, 254, see, 1.0, 2.0, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, 7.0. So you can calculate in that manner, right? So now let's navigate to subnets. Click on create subnet. What is a VPC ID? My custom VPC. So how many subnets you want to create? You can define those properties here. Subnet name. So subnet name, I'm going to call this as a public subnet. This one I'm going to call it as a public subnet, and another one I'm going to call it as a private subnet. Public subnet 1 is the name I'm giving. So which one you want to make it as a public subnet? I'm going to make AP South 1A as a public subnet. What is the CIDR block you want to give? So this is a CIDR block I decided to go with. I'm going to give that here. Now add another subnet. Click on add new subnet. What is the subnet name? Private subnet. I'm going to, if you want to, you can even pick AP South 1A to run as a private subnet also. But as we are in initial stage, I'm going to make AP South 1A as a public subnet, 1B as a private subnet. Now, what is the CIDR block you want to use? Go here, give that. Now, I have given two subnet properties and click on create subnet. Immediately, both the subnets got created here. See, two subnets got created. /18. So how many IP addresses we are going to get? 16,379. Okay. So basically we should get 384 minus 5, 16,379. So AP South 1A is a public subnet and private subnet. Where we are defining this as a public subnet and private subnet? Nowhere, not yet. We have just given names, nothing more than that. Did we made this as a public? Did we made this as a private? No, right? Not yet. So we have just defined the names. So that is a step 2. When coming to step 3, now when it will become as a public subnet? Whenever we have internet connectivity. When it will become as a private subnet? Whenever you don't have public facing access over the internet. Then it will become as a private subnet. So first of all, I need a component where it can provide the internet. That component name is internet gateway. Just like, you're constructing a building, and within that building, one floor, you require internet, another floor, you don't require internet. But before that, you need to contact the ISP and he need to fetch a cable till your building, right? So that component here in our VPC is internet gateway. Create an internet gateway. This internet gateway will provide the internet connectivity to our VPC. So navigate to internet gateway. Click on create internet gateway. What is the name tag you want to give? My custom IZW. So no much options. Click on create internet gateway. It got created. But is it associated to any of the VPC? Here attached to a VPC option is there. It is not attached to any of the VPC. Click on that, navigate to actions, attach to VPC. To what VPC you want to attach? I'm selecting my custom VPC. Click on attach internet gateway. And this internet gateway scales automatically. You don't need to look for DR scenarios for this internet gateway and all. It is like our load balancer. So one load balancer is sufficient, right? Similarly, one internet gateway is sufficient to scale the data automatically, right? So, and one more thing, one VPC can contains only one internet gateway at a time. So for example, so I'm worrying about the internet resource for this particular VPC. I'm trying to create another internet gateway. So I'm going to call this as a test internet gateway. Okay, now I want to associate same internet gateway to my custom VPC. Attach to VPC. See, you do not have any VPCs. You need a VPC in order to associate this or attach this. So one VPC can contain only one internet gateway. So now we have associated that internet gateway also. But is that sufficient? Is it providing internet? No. We just got internet linked to our billing, but we didn't mention, okay, you need to provide internet to this and you need to provide internet to this. We haven't performed this, right? So we have got the resource where it can provide internet to this VPC. That is step 3. When coming to step 4, this is an important step. If you understand this step, then you got the public subnet, private subnet mechanism. When coming to step 4, here create root table and perform subnet associations and add routes based on requirement. Okay, so this route table is a resource to take internet from this internet gateway to provide internet to this public subnet. So that entry we are going to perform by using this route table. So we by defaultly we have a main route table. We have main route table. All the subnets we created defaultly adds to this route table without performing any additional things. See here, some time back we created these two subnets, right? That by defaultly added to this. So if you want to perform everything, like, if you want to perform something to these, for example, you decided to create two public subnets. In that case, go and edit this main route table. But as per my requirement, I have a public subnet and I have a private subnet. So simply editing main route table is not sufficient. The standard procedure in our organization is create a public route table and private route table. So navigate to route tables. So this is a custom route table. See, do we have any subnet associations here? You do not have any subnet associations, but the below following subnets has not been explicitly associated with any route table and are therefore associated with the main route table. So these two, as it is not added any route table, it will be a member of main route table. Right, so let's keep that aside. Now create a route table. Click on create route table. What is the name you want to give? I'm going to call this as a public route. In what VPC you want to create? I want to create this in my custom VPC. Then I want to, like, you can give any tag if you want to, then click on create. So one public route table got created. Public route table got created. Create one private route table. Click on create route table, private route. Then in what VPC you want to create? I want to create this in my custom VPC. Then click on create. So now one public route got created and one private route got created. Now go to public route. Go to public route. Edit subnet association. I've selected public route table. Navigated to subnet association. Then edit subnet associations. Select the public subnet. Then click on save. Navigate to private route. Subnet association, edit subnet association, add private subnet to this. Click on save. So public route table is here and private route table is here. Both contains its respective subnets. But for this public subnet, did we added any route via internet gateway? Not yet. So now navigate to routes, edit routes, add route. So then what traffic you want to allow? I want to allow all the traffic 0.0.0.0 via what target? Via internet gateway. Select the internet gateway, then click on save routes. So now what happens, whatever the subnet is associated here, this public subnet, whenever it is trying to access internet, The request will go to routes and it will look, okay, do we have any entry related to internet gateway? Yes, we have an entry related to this internet gateway. So the request goes via internet gateway and comes via internet gateway. So if you are accessing anything from this public subnet, then it can access internet and it can be accessible over the internet. When coming to private subnet, so only local one is there. This local one now is communication between the subnets we created here. So for example, you launched one instance here, you launched another instance here. Can these instances can communicate? Yes, of course they both can communicate. How they both can communicate? By using this particular local route. How many subnets you are going to create within a VPC? Those all can communicate just because of this local route. Can we delete this local route? Not at all. And now, do we need to add route via internet gateway here? Not really required. If you are adding a route via internet gateway, this private route table, like whatever the one is subnet associated here, private subnet, there is no meaning for the name you have given so far. Whatever the name you have given so far, there is no meaning. So for this, we have a resource that can provide the internet. So this becomes as a internet facing subnet. This one, we don't have any resource to provide the internet. So it don't wait as a public subnet. It's a private subnet. So this is a mechanism and this is an important step. If you got this step, you got the public subnet, private subnet logic and all. Even if you have 10 subnets also, so you can easily understand, okay, which one is a public subnet, which one is a private subnet. Okay. So let me quickly show you one thing. No. Okay. So here I have a VPC, guys. So I have a VPC called management. Within that management, I have some subnets. See, these all are the subnets I have. Among all the subnets, I want to see which all are the subnets are public, which one is a private. So how I can see that here? This is one real environment, guys. So total 4 root tables are there. I want to see, forget about the name. I want to see which one is a public, which all are the subnets are public. Total, I have 10 subnets here. See, 11 subnets are there. Total 11 or 10 subnets are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Total 10 subnets are there. Out of these 10 subnets, so I want to see which subnets are public, which subnets are private. Can anyone? Is these 3 subnets are public? I have 3 subnets here. So these subnets contains this root table.
This is not public.
Is it public?
No.
Forget about
public.
that PCX.
No.
No.
Here I have 5 more subnets here. I have 5 more subnets and this is a root.
No.
Is it public subnet?
No.
I have 2 more subnets here.
Yeah.
This one?
This is
Yes,
public.
this is public. It has a gateway.
Internet gateway, IZW. Very simple logic. So now, among these 10 subnets, only 2 subnets are accessible over the internet, and within that machine also it can access internet. So this PCX basically it's a peering connection. So how to create that peering and that we will discuss later. I should delete this. I forgot to delete. Okay. So this is one, and this is island region. Do I have subnets? No. Okay, so that is one simulated to one of the production environment, guys. So this private route, as we don't have any route via internet gateway, this is not a pub internet facing one, but this one it have a route via internet gateway, so it will get internet and all. So any questions on this step 4?
Avinash, I have a question. Instead of this open internet gateway, means 0.0.0, can we use some specific IP in internet gateway?
Yes, you can. For example, if you want to access only Google website,
Okay.
so instead of 0.0.0, give only Google website IP address, only Google will open.
But it's just for the incoming traffic or outgoing traffic?
Incoming and outgoing.
Both.
Yes.
Okay. One more question. If we allow only the specific IP in internet gateway, but in security group we have open internet, so still it will working or it will not work to other
Want to
side?
work. So internet gateway is the first point. See, it is whether it is reaching to your EC2 instance. First, it evaluate here, right? At what level you are doing this? At subnet level, you are doing within the subnet, you are going to have an EC2 instance. You tell me the answer. This is my VPC. Within that, we have a subnet. So at this subnet level, you have like, internet gateway. This is your EC2 instance. At EC2 instance, you have security group. So now your question is, you blocked something here.
Okay.
So via VPC, via internet gateway, it will go and reach this EC2 instance. Security group evaluation is going to happen here. Now, will this request reach our EC2 instance?
No.
Will this request reach our EC2 instance?
No.
At subnet level only you're blocking. So
Okay.
it won't.
Okay.
Even if you allow here also, no use. You blocked here. So basically that concept, like network ACL, that we will discuss tomorrow. Don't worry about that. We will go in detail about these evaluations. Don't worry at the moment, please. So any other questions, guys? So with this step, we're done with our VPC creation. One optional step is there. That is a step 5. So clear till the step 4, guys. Can you please confirm?
Yes, Avinash.
Just one response. Okay. So here is a step 5. So now let's navigate to EC2. I'm navigating to EC2 and I'm going to launch an EC2 instance. So basically for public subnet EC2 instance, we need a public IP address. Whatever the instance you're going to launch here, we need a public IP address. Okay. So getting that public IP address. So I'm going to choose Windows at initial stage, Microsoft Windows Server 2016 base, T2 micro. Instead of default VPC, selecting custom VPC, and see here private subnet auto assign public IP address. It is disabled. If you go and if you choose this public subnet also, it is disabled. So whenever you are selecting this public subnet, we required a public subnet. We required a public IP address. So you manually need to go here, you enable this. Okay, so you always need to go here, you enable this. So if you don't want to perform this operation, If you don't want to perform this, whenever you select this public subnet, it should be enabled by defaultly. For that operation, navigate to subnets, select public subnet, navigate to actions, modify auto assign IP settings. 1 second. So select that modify auto assign public IP settings. Enable this. If you enable this, so here whenever you select public subnet, automatically this feature is going to enable. If you don't want to, if you are okay to enable this feature manually, you can skip this step. This is not at all mandatory step. That's why in bracket also I wrote it as a optional. Choose public subnet, actions, modify auto IP assign settings and enable it. Okay. So now what happened? Whenever we go here, whenever we select my custom VPC, whenever we select public subnet, it is enabled. So you don't need to worry about this field. If you select public, you will get a public IP address. If you select private, you don't get a public IP address. Now I selected public subnet. Click on next. 30 gigs. Add. So tags. This is my public subnet instance. Okay. So now, can we find any security groups here? This is a new VPC we created some time back, so we don't have any security group, only default security group is. Click on create a new security group. What is the security group name you want to give? Security group name, I want to call this as custom VPC SG. 3389 is open. Review and launching using an existing key pair. Okay, now let me launch an EC2 instance in private subnet. Click on launch instance. I'm going to take Windows Server 2016 base, T2 micro. Now I'm going to select my custom VPC and I'm going to select private subnet and public IP address is disabled. So we don't get any public IP address. So after some time, you might come up with a question. Hey Avinash, as we don't have a public IP address, we are not able to connect. Can you associate a public IP address to test the connectivity? Just to answer that question, for one time, I'm going to enable this. We'll see. Even if you associate a public IP address, can we access this EC2 instance or not? That the output I want to show. So I'm going to enable this. Then click on next. 30 gigs. Tags. This is private subnet instance. Click on next. I'm going to choose an existing security group that is open for everyone. Review and launching using an existing key pair. All right, so I have a public subnet instance and here is a public IP address. And see, this public DNS name is not resolving. So you can expect a question on this when coming to this endpoints. We have a concept called endpoints. Whenever we are trying to create an endpoint, for one of the VPC subnet, it will fail. My custom VPC I selected and I'm going to select private subnet, public subnet. Whenever we are trying to create an endpoint, I think it's an interface endpoint. So we will land up into an error, guys. So you must enable this public DNS and all such type of errors we might get. So whenever we are getting such type of error related to this endpoint, we need to enable these DNS names. For that, navigate to VPC, select the VPC, click on actions, edit DNS host names. Enable this. See, before enabling this, do we have anything under this public IPv4 DNS? No. But I'm going to enable this, save changes. Now go back here, give refresh. See, we got the DNS name. So in your interview, if you got a question, okay, we are not able to see public IPv4, public DNS names for our EC2 instance, but it is showing public IP address. So what is the reason and how you are going to fix that? Navigate to VPC, go to actions, edit DNS host names, enable this DNS host names. This will give public DNS for our EC2 instances. Right. So that is another thing. Now let's connect to this EC2 instance. So here is a public IP address. I'm going to grab it and MSTSC, get the public IP address, click on connect. And there you can see it is asking for username and password. Default username is administrator and password. Let's go to RDP client and get password, browse the key pair, whatever the key pair is associated, browse that, get the password, enter the password here, click on OK and give yes. And there we got connected to our EC2 instance. So from my home network, I'm able to connect to this particular EC2 instance. So is it internet facing or not? So technically it's a internet facing only. And within this machine also, I can access internet. So let me disable IEHC. I am navigating to server manager, disabling IEHC, navigate to local server, IEHC, turning it off, and open Internet Explorer. So then typo. So we can say that internet is accessible here. So technically this is a public subnet instance. Okay. Now let's go and try to connect to private subnet instance. For private subnet instance also wantedly I have enabled a public IP address. So grabbing that, Windows R, MSTSC, given the public IP address. So it's trying to connect, and it's going to fail. Can we use private IP address to connect to this instance? No. Why? Because private IP address works only within the network, not from the outside network. My home is different network, this AWS VPC is a different network, so it's not going to work. So now, how to get connected to this private subnet instance then? I want to get connected to this private subnet instance to see what exactly happening or how I can get connected to it. I launched an EC2 instance, that's okay. Any quick answers?
You have to attach
Go
it to the
inside the
gateway,
public
right?
subnet instance.
If you attach internet gateway, it will become as a public subnet. Then why I will call it as a private subnet instance? So adding internet gateway is not at all a solution.
From the existing public subnet instance.
Perfect. So we have an existing public subnet instance. So from this instance also, we can take remote connectivity, right? So now within this machine, I can take MSTSC. How this public subnet instance can communicate with private subnet instance?
They are on the
There
same network.
in route table,
Local.
route via local route. This local route enable communication between this public subnet and private subnet. Now again, so do we need to use public IP address or private IP address? As it is within the VPC, we need to use private IP address. If you grab public IP address, if you're trying to give the public IP address, click on connect, it won't. As it is within the same VPC and within the same network, so we are good to use that private IP address. Give the private IP address, click on connect. There you can see it is asking for username and password. Now default username is administrator. So then connect, RDP client, get password, browse the key pair, then give the password here, click on OK. Give yes. And we got connected to private subnet instance. First, initially we connected to public facing subnet EC2 instance. From that EC2 instance, we got connected to private subnet EC2 instance. So now, when coming to organization level, we have a concept called jump server. Basically, so now we are using this public subnet instance to get connected to private subnet instance. So technically this public subnet instance is working as a jump server. To jump into this machine, we are using this. To connect to this all private subnet instances, we are going to use this. So this machine, we call it as a jump server. Jump server or bastion host. Technical word, that is a bastion host. Common terminology is a jump server. Now, how many instances you have in private subnet? All those instances you can connect from this public subnet or jump server. Okay, so jump server, it always runs in custom VPC public subnet, and we use this server or instance to connect to all the private subnet instances. All right, you got the jump server mechanism. So generally in organization, what we are going to do, we are going to have a high configured jump server. It's not just T2 micro, high configured jump server, first thing. And how many members can connect to this server at a time, that is also matter. So we are going to purchase the terminal licenses. So MS terminal licenses, we are going to purchase this license. So simultaneously, n number of the users can get connected to this server. So how we can see who all are get connected? Go to task manager. There we have an option called users. At moment, one user is connected. Similarly, we are going to have 10, 15 users also here. Okay, so that is another mechanism. Now I'm in private subnet. See, I'm expanding this. So it is AP South 1B, availability zone is AP South 1B. It's a private subnet. So do we have internet here? Let me verify. I'm navigating to server manager, disable the IEHC, navigate into local server, IEHC, turning it off, and open it at the Internet Explorer. Give google.com, It will try to load, and it's going to fail. See, even here also, no internet access symbol. So this private subnet instance don't have any route via internet gateway, don't have any NAT instance or NAT gateway to provide internet connectivity. That we will discuss tomorrow, how we can configure the NATing and all. Okay, so any questions so far for me, guys?
Avinash, terminal license means like the RDS CAN license?
See, generally, how many users can connect to these EC2 instance at a time?
By default, 2 users.
By default, 2 users. So, as it is a jump server, at a time, 10 members also it's going to connect.
Correct.
So, how we are allowing 10 members? For that, we need to purchase a license from Microsoft. That license is a terminal license. So there is a service called terminal. So we need to purchase a license from Microsoft and we need to apply that license here in this machine. So then it will allow at a time 10 members also can connect to the server. As it is an EC2 instance, it is not bounded to the hardware. It is bounded to OS level only.
So you are saying, right, I can have multiple users, but at a time only 2 can connect by default.
Yes.
Okay.
But at a time, I want to share this this jump server. Generally, we are n number of the users are going to get connected to the jump server.
Then we need terminal license.
Yes. Any other questions? No, all good.
So that's a default IIS behavior, right? I mean, the default 2 users. Is it the case?
Yes, by defaultly they will give only 2 users option.
Okay.
For server class operating system for Windows servers.
Okay.
Okay. So if you are good, we will discuss NAT option, that how to provide internet connectivity to private subnet EC2 instance without making it as a public facing one. That we will discuss now if you are good. Otherwise, we will discuss tomorrow. We have a session tomorrow, guys. Why? Because last week itself, like we got those things right. So we have session tomorrow.
Okay.
And this VPC creation, I took an entire session to make you to understand these 5 steps. Now it's your turn to practice this.
Yes.
So please spare some time and please practice, guys. Okay. So guys, please make it as an interactive one.
Yes, Avinash. Yeah. We'll practice.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So task is pretty straightforward. So create a VPC with 2 public subnets and 2 private subnets. Okay. So among the 2 public subnet, one subnet, like in AP South 1A, South 1A, create 1 public subnet and 1 private subnet. Similarly, in AP South 1B, create 1 public subnet and 1 private subnet. So I'm just asking you to, while creating subnets, I'll show you how to do that. While creating subnets, whenever you click on create subnet within this VPC, now private subnet, public subnet 1 already is there. So create public subnet 2. So now select AP South 1B. As I already have public subnet 1 in AP South 1A, this time I'm selecting this. Now pick another CIDR block. Then create another subnet, call this as private subnet 2. This time I'm asking you to choose AP South 1A. So then pick one CIDR block and give that here. Then click on create subnet. So what happened? Along with the two subnets, we are going to get two more. Public subnet 1, public subnet 2, private subnet 1, private subnet 2. So we are going to get 4 subnets. 2 technically it's going to run in episode 1A and it's another one it's going to run in episode 1B. So as I have launched one instance in episode 1A and 1B, see this available IP address count got changed. Generally we should get 16,000. Generally we should get 16,379, but it is showing only 378. Why? Because we launched an EC2 instance. Whenever you terminate this EC2 instance, one of the EC2 instance, count is going to change. So once that instance got terminated, this count is going to change. I'll show you. It is shutting down. So many times we are going to work on this VPC. So please spare some time and make sure you're clear. So please practice on same day, guys, at least for this VPC, please. It's a very complex topic. Tomorrow, see, if you don't practice today, tomorrow we are going to perform everything on top of this. Day after tomorrow, on top of tomorrow's session. So please, this session, whatever the one we perform in today's session, that is very basic. On top of this only, we are going to perform many things. So please spare some time and make sure you practice on same day. Like it's a total 3.5 sessions only. So one session today it's completed. Just 2 more sessions for this VPC. Only 2 more sessions for this VPC. So spend some time practice. All right, so this count, it is going to increase in some time. So in what subnet that instance got terminated, that will get like, 16,379, another one. So how many instances is running in one particular subnet? So instead of going here filtering, we can simply come back here. Okay, how many available IP addresses we are going to get and how many we have at moment. So those many instances we have and those many NIC cards we have and all that, we'll come to know about that, right? So that is another small thing, right? So I'm going to upload this and I hope you guys got some time to complete the EC2 quiz document. If not, please spare some time and please prepare your answers, guys. And whatever the things we configured today, it's not going to cost us anything. So you don't need to worry about that costing and all. Only one component called NAT gateway is going to cost us. Apart from that, no other resource is going to cost us in VPC. So however, I'll tell you what is the alternative option for that NAT. So we have NAT instance option that I'll explain tomorrow. Okay. So any questions before closing the session?
No, thank you.
All right. So that's it for today's session. See you again tomorrow, guys. Thank you.